I've been enjoying playing Clavinova pianos for about 20 years. I've had them at home, I've had them in my studio, I've had them on tour with me, and I've discovered that Yamaha are celebrating 30 glorious years of making these things. I've had this latest Clavinova for a little while now, and so Yamaha have invited me to put it through its paces a bit and find out some of its superb features and sounds. So I'd start, of course, with the piano. With the piano we have an orchestra of 10 people. They are your fingers, and the sound that people make with the piano is going to be different for all of us, but there's lots of different sounds even just on this. So for instance, there's the grand piano sound, which I might have if I was just trying to figure something out quickly, and it's lovely, quite forgiving, so you could play a bit of stride piano if you wanted to. So forth. It's quite forgiving, and there's also sort of other sounds. You just press a button and you've got nice other pictures as well. I do enjoy pictures. So here we have the honky tonk piano. We're all familiar with that sound. Also in here it has a lot of the lovely vintage sounds of keyboards, a lot of the things I grew up with. For instance, when I first toured with Squeeze, you couldn't get a piano anywhere, and there was nothing like this, and we used to use the CP-80 piano, which I've still got my CP-80, but it had a very distinctive sound, and this is it. In fact, I remember it was a lovely romantic sound of the 1970s and 80s. The punk piano, in fact, the first record I ever played on. I shan't bore you with the title, but that was, and it was on one of these. This is what the British sort of punk and blues people had. But there's not just that. You can also, for instance, on the other side of the Atlantic, when we were sort of babies, Stevie Wonder had this lovely clavinet. Lovely sounds from the past, and if you want to go right back to the past, you can, of course, plunge straight back to the 17th century. Now, in my studio, often we'll be thinking, should we overdub something of this or something of that on there? And we have one of these in the studio because we'll go straight to it, rather than sort of ring up and have a 18th century harpsichord delivered to the studio at great expense and bother. Perhaps we just open this up, press the button, and you'd immediately have this sort of get my wig out. The other area for me that I enjoy on the Clavinova pianos is the percussion centre, so I can create my own sort of band. Now, they'll do a whole accompaniment if you want, but I like to accompany myself. But the drum machines on these have become incredibly brilliant now, so you can create whatever atmosphere you want. So for instance, if I was at home and just wanted to sort of fiddle around, you can do this sort of thing, and you can tap the tempo, which is very useful. So, you know, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, and then a nice double bass sound there, you see. What I particularly really love about this rhythm section of the whole thing, or the style section of the whole thing, is you pick something at random, like it might have been Ibiza dance, or here we've got another little bit of hip-hop, and you put it in, it just kind of makes you think in a different way. So you've got this kind of really great sounding things, and you can just then start thinking. Stopped at the same time. Really marvellous. So there you go, a whole thing, a whole raft of rhythms to get your imagination going in a different way to perhaps the way you weren't thinking that morning, and I quite enjoy that in a musical instrument. So another rather ingenious device is this. So on this little stick here, I can put it in there, and on there I will have a lot of my orchestra that I can play around with if I'm at home trying to work out if I was going to kind of change the arrangement, or if I was going to try a different piano part, but without boring all of them by making them running it again and again. I've got it in here, so I can plug it into here like so. Nice easy fit. At this point I then select my own double O boogie, close here, press play here, count it in, and so forth. We can contrast the world of boogie with this is a song that I wrote that Shane MacGowan sang, and for instance, it's often the sort of thing we're thinking, well, should we put strings on something? So what we'd do in the studio is with the Clavinova, we'd sit and we'd try and work out what strings might do, and then we could hear what the sound would be like. And so this is really what we would have done. So here's Shane singing the song, and then we think, do we want strings? You know, so you've got a piano playing. Nice little intro, and then you put layer some nice strings over to sort of give it some warmth, or try it on here first.
An orange on the table, your dress upon the floor, the two of us upon our bed. Who could ask for more? Through traffic jams, past caravans, I travel the whole night through. But I would give up everything just to be home with you. I would give up everything to be at home with you.
And that adds a certain sweetness. It adds a certain sweetness, and also means I can experiment in the studio to see if something sounds right before you've had the huge expense of pulling in a string section. And some of the time, maybe this sound will just work perfectly well on its own anyway. Another genius little touch is this organ, where you can get the drawbars making your sound for you with all the proper effects. No matter what level of the piano you're at, it's a very convenient instrument. You can put headphones in so you can listen and practice without bothering the other people in the home or standing next to you even. You could also use it because it has a lovely feel to it. To practice, or write.